from a recent study that we did, about 84% of executives expect to see results from AI within a year. So anyone who wants to do something with AI, they're like, within a year, things, should be rocking over here, and we should be, things should be great with whatever we've decided to do with AI. But if you ask that same group of people, how does that align with their business strategy? They will say, well, only 30% say that what they're thinking about related to AI aligns with their overall company's business strategy. And for me, that dissonance is the first problem.
Hi, I'm Greg Stewart, CEO of MMA Global, the international nonprofit trade association for CMOs who are focused on architecting a new future of marketing.
I'm Rex Briggs, an author, market researcher, measurement inventor, and entrepreneur.
So Rex, I really love, and I mean you too, obviously, sort of new cool tech toys. For you, it also includes, I think, things like Ferraris, if I remember right. But nonetheless, a lot of cool, new fun kind of stuff. And we certainly get an opportunity to kind of, play, experiment with all this stuff. But we also know that when it comes to effectively using some of these tools in the marketing world, it's a lot more than just getting the tech to work. In some regards, that's kind of sometimes the easy part.
Yeah, the implementation is so key. And whether it's learning to drive a complicated car and having this great toy to take out there, the idea is, especially in business, is we want something more than toys. We want something that's scalable, something that works, something we can implement. And if you can't implement it, if you don't have the right people, if you don't have the right team to take it from that initial pilot to scale, well, then you've got no impact at all from what you've just done.
Yeah, so I think what makes a lot of success or I think you're right. I think a lot of the success here is around sort of the people, the plans, and I think what we like to focus on at MMA about what are chief marketing officers and how they come and show up to the organization. So, and what they do and their contribution. I mean, listen, you got to be really smart about the gaps that AI has, and it's not, and how they can really feel. I think we're still sort of in a process to kind of figure all that out and then managing the teams and issues to get there, right?
Yeah, that's right. And so today we will be talking about what good marketing leaders can and should be doing to implement AI in a way that helps their organizations and their customers in the best way possible. And we're joined by Jacqueline Woods, who is CMO at Teradata, a cloud analytics platform. Welcome.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
Hey, Jacqueline, funny enough, too, maybe just for the listener, I mean, listen, I happen to know a little bit here. Teradata, I don't know, 40, 50-year-old company. It's been in the tech, data space forever. I mean, it's like one of the OGs, right? I mean, it was really there forever. So I'm sure before we maybe get into sort of your reflections on CMOs, I'm just curious, it might be good for the listener to just understand, like, what have you been going through at Teradata to really, I think, dare I say, I think, and you can change the words here, but I think it's modernize data and its application of the business, right? I'm assuming that's the journey Teradata's been on the last few years, right?
It's the journey that Teradata's been on, but we've also been the company that's been doing machine learning and AI for like 40 years. I think that the discovery around artificial intelligence and machine learning is just that it's easier and more democratized right now. So once ChatGPT quote came on the scene, so to speak, it kind of honed into focus that, wow, we can do something that most people don't have to be a data scientist to be able to do, and we can learn some things, and you don't necessarily have to have what I would call data engineering skills to do it. But it just brought it down so that it was easier for people to visualize and see. And there's been a huge amount of progress, particularly in the last, I would say, 12 to 24 months on this conversation that's happening in the marketplace. When you think about Teradata, we focus really on three things, which is really helping companies improve their overall business performance, and that's rooted and grounded in data and analytics and modeling, and we do that on a cloud platform or an on-premise platform. So we'll do it hybrid, we'll do it, in the cloud, but predominantly, really, just we've been modeling and doing patterns for, decades. And it just happens to be, I don't want to say it's in right now. It's always been in, but right now it's really popular. And we also really focus on how do we help companies, really our customers' customer, have a more holistic experience related to their own customers so that they can create what we would call deeper and more engaging experiences so that they can become more sticky. And we help them think about how do you use the insights that you're getting to really change and transform your business. Now, as you mentioned, Greg, in order to do that, you've got to start with a modernized platform. And our technology helps you modernize your platform. But first and foremost, kind of good data in, good data out, bad data in, bad data out. I think everyone should think about that.
Well, unpack more the brand stickiness part. I think that was the basis of your Fast Company article, which got our attention. And it's an interesting concept because you start off with really talking about saying I'm a robot and that should increase trust. And that's such an interesting concept. Yeah, tell us more about that.
Well, when you think about if you're, one of the most important use cases that we've had for a long time that everyone in marketing wants to be better at is personalization. I think if you think when you're on the web and you're trying to find things, people want to serve up information to you that is contextualized and more personalized to you. And you have to be careful when you're doing that, right? Whether you're in someone's domain and on their own, what I would call in their environment, or whether you're out in the wild and you just are on the quote internet versus someone's intranet. You're trying to essentially find out information, and in doing so people want to give you the best information possible. So even if you just thought of simple search with Google, they're it's trying to say you ask this question or you put these terms in, and I want to get you closest to the pin as possible. And so there's a big difference in doing a 2-foot putt versus a 20-foot putt, no matter if you're, Tiger Woods in his prime. In his prime, he might have made 80% of the 25 feet putts, but he probably made 98% of the 2-foot putts. And so you have to think about how do you get closer to the pin. And that really is what happens when you're thinking about personalization and AI. But you want that personalization to be authentic. Does the information that a company have about you, how are they using that information? How are they relating it to other data points that they have in their company or other data points that they may have that give them a better vision of who you are and then how to approach you with their products, services, and solutions? That's critical. And when it's done well, absolutely, you're going to be, more engaged, and you're going to feel a stickier relationship with that end consumer or that end user.
So, Jacqueline, given where you sit, and if the listener took time, they'd see you have a long history of tech companies, Oracle, IBM, CMO, even in some cases. So, you're going to know best. How are you? So, given you have advanced, I'm going to assume you have advanced knowledge. Teradata has been doing this a long time. You said machine learning has been around. How are you as a CMO starting to think about AI? And if you want to reflect on sort of your own views, or if you want to sort of even start to give signal to sort of other CMOs how you think they should be thinking of it, given your experience, I think that'd be really valuable to the listener.
Well, a couple things. Over the last couple years, we've probably interviewed or surveyed close to 3,000 C-suite executives. And what we do know is if you just start with kind of executives and what they're thinking about, from a recent study that we did, about 84% of executives expect to see results from AI within a year. So anyone who wants to do something with AI, they're like, within a year, things, should be rocking over here, and we should be, things should be great with whatever we've decided to do with AI. But if you ask that same group of people, how does that align with their business strategy? They will say, well, only 30% say that what they're thinking about related to AI aligns with their overall company's business strategy. And for me, that dissonance is the first problem, because I sit on a couple of boards, and what I would say to you, whether it's a public company or a private company, and I sit on a public company board as well as a private company board, they're asking the same question. And my own board for the company that I work for, Teradata, asks the same question, which is, how are you going to grow? That's the kind of first and foremost. Next year, if the baseline is 100, how are you getting to 105, 107, 110? And what are those mechanisms that you have in order to do that? And so as a marketer, we think about a lot of things. And if you just kind of chat GPT this, there's going to be a bunch of things that come up that are fairly intuitive and fairly obvious, right? How do you increase the lifetime value of a customer? That's critical. How do you reduce the amount of churn that you have among your customer base? That's critical. How do you increase share of wallet? Again, critical. Cross sell, upsell, as well as what are other types of efficiencies that you need. So there's like kind of 10 core things that are out there that for a long time we as marketers have tried to do. And what I think that AI does is help you do some of these things faster. And I don't believe that you need to do all 10 of them to meet your growth objectives. I think you need to look at what I would call this kind of horizon of opportunities, whether that's, what am I doing to increase the lifetime value? What am I really doing to improve cross sell and upsell? What am I really doing to drive greater personalization or have more references that give people more confidence to buy my product? If you only do 2 or 3 of those, 100% you will grow. And the question is, how do you use AI to really be determinative of those patterns that help you make those decisions?
So unpack one of those, because I think you nailed it. How do you use AI to do that thought? And I like how you're waterfalling down from the board strategy and the objectives and the playbooks that marketing can use and so forth. That's good.
Too.
So,
that was good.
So keep going. Take us to that next part. How does AI then do
So
some of
let me
those
take
specific
you
ones?
to something that we've done specifically, right? So we know in our own data, we have patterns and we have customers that have a higher propensity to buy from us and have a higher propensity to have certain buying patterns. And what does that look like? And so we are using AI to essentially understand what those patterns are. And then we're looking at intent data and other signals in the marketplace to say, who are those other companies that are out there that look like this customer? So if it looked like Greg, and Greg is a great customer of ours, and Greg has been doing these things, and Rex is out there in the ether, and Rex is also looking very much like Greg, doing a lot of the same things, but is not a customer of ours, then we're going to say, well, what is it that we can approach you with, Rex, that we would have already have sold to Greg? Because you and Greg may have some similarities, and then we can figure out, how do we approach you? And what I would say is that's also scored. So there's going to be 1,000 Rexes, and we're not going to approach all of them, because you're going to be scored. And then we're going to approach the ones that we know have the highest propensity given the strengths that we have. And each company has different strengths. So AI helps us 100% do that, and helps us be more reflective of who should we be approaching and why, and with what types of conversations based on the patterns that we saw
But
from
Jacqueline, I
Greg.
mean, listen, lookalike strategy is not a, not a new concept. It's not like AI invented lookalike strategy, so that's been around there.
The
Although,
AI did not invent that, but what
but how,
AI has
do you know
done,
how it's how is AI actually doing that? And by the way, have you guys? Here's would be the
well,
best thing. Have you guys actually run experiments to determine how AI is doing better
yeah,
than other
yes.
solutions like that? I mean,
Well, it's doing better than others because what AI lookalike is not different. I could take lookalike and say these two personas are
yeah,
similar, these two
yeah.
people
I
are
can match
similar.
company size. I
But
can
what
come up
we
with a bunch of stuff and probably get a good
but
look
but
at that, right?
but but what we have now that is very different is we not have millions of data points. We have billions and trillions of data points, which means that even if, you know, even if you're talking about things that are moving something by a tenth of a percent, and on a very large book of business, that's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
money. So, to the extent that you're now ingesting very specific, either small language
Mm-hmm.
models, things that you could get from open source like Hugging Face, other information that is data that you did not have that looks at specific sets and types of information. We've never had that before. So that's very different. And so being able to take those sets of information and in that look at multiple types of data
Mm-hmm.
across many horizons. So people are saying, "Oh, we looked at a lot of data." No, there's like, I forget the number of PDFs that are on the well. I had just looked this up recently. It is a very large number. The ability, if you wanted to, if you were whether you're a law firm or whether you happen to be a hospital, there are many places where people have what I would call millions and millions of PDFs. That is one set of data that they would want to look at and analyze and ingest, that they could not do that in, I'm telling you, a nanosecond or a millisecond.
Okay.
That is
But
the difference.
yeah,
It is the
I, I,
speed at which you can analyze and make the changes. And that's just one set
right.
of data. We're what we're talking about is the
Yeah.
magnitude, not the fact that you had something that was
Yeah.
look-alike from before. It is
I,
the
I got that.
magnitude of
By
the
the way, it's
change.
2.5 trillion PDF documents in the world, apparently,
I,
according to the internet,
yeah, I knew
according
it
to
was something. I
Perplexity.
couldn't remember the
Yeah,
number.
that's a crazy number, right? Exactly. I think I've read half of them. The question, but I don't just kidding. I don't, not really. Rex knows I don't really read. I didn't even read his book originally when I wrote the foreword, so he knows about that. That's a whole other story. Jacqueline,
He just
but
attended the
dude,
training sessions. He's more of
I
an
did.
audio learner.
Actually, that was really rude. Actually, what I did, Jacqueline, is I said, hey, if you were a marketing expert and you were writing a book about AI, what would be a really good forward for that? So I did it. I sent it to him, and he called me back. He says, yeah, that's okay. It's good enough. He goes, and I finally said, Rex, I just wrote that in ChatGPT. He goes, he says, it didn't seem like you hadn't really read my book.
I think that came back the initial response, which is okay,
I went
I'll
back. That
take
was
whatever
initial.
I
I
can
went
get
back.
for
I
you.
went back and read it, and then I wrote a better forward. Hey, Jacqueline, question though for you: do you have any sense, even if it's just sort of kind of in your gut, like what the improvement? Like we've been doing AI personalization studies. Rex brought us a methodology that using real AI, machine learning, actually more specifically, machine learning around that, and we've seen what is the value of personalization. So we're now pegged at 10 studies we've done plus 149%. Like we know that now, right? It's like personalization really matters. Like you had to be an idiot not to figure that out. But I got a number to it. Okay. Do you have any sense of what the increase in lookalike could mean to the marketing that you're doing? Like, could you give guidance to anybody on that yet?
Um, I I don't have like, we've done
Yeah.
this and now I can tell you that you're gonna grow by 4 points or gonna grow by 6 points. What I can tell you is the efficiency that it's
Oh, yeah.
had
Huge.
for what we do and for how we utilize our resources and the speed and agility with which we can
Yeah.
change. So when we think about an offer and we have um, one that I love because I tell everyone that everyone complains, and we have this offer called Customer Complaint Analyzer. And so people complain everywhere. They can, whether TikTok, whether it's Instagram, whether it's YouTube, whether they called your call center, doesn't matter. Whether they send a letter, that people have a tendency when they are unhappy to express that in some form or fashion, and it kind of goes out to the world. And companies really want to understand, how do they improve their services or products, or what is the thing that gets complained about often. They want to remedy that, or said another way, they might want to innovate around, I heard this 12 times, maybe I need to really think about solving this pain point with a different type of product. Those are all things that people 100% will do. So when I think about how, what is reflective of what we're doing with AI, I've got a bunch of stats that, we've helped companies improve X by 200 or 300%. We have all those statistics. Each use case is different. And so for me, it's really thinking about, what is it that is going to be the biggest opportunity for you in your role as a marketer to align to the business strategy that I just said that only 3 in 10 people align with, and figure out if you can use AI to help accelerate that journey to being more aligned so you can deliver results, and can you use AI to be more agile. And I'm very serious when I tell people, don't do AI for AI's sake, because the importance of doing it is to understand how to use it, and to make sure that the data that you're using is a trusted source of information that can be used, so that you're going to be able to essentially leverage that output. And for me, those are the most critical things that I think about. You will get the results if you do the work. But it's not a magic bullet, and it requires a certain amount of diligence.
So you've given 2 use cases here: the look-alike and going deeper there. The other one, complaint analyzer, sounds really interesting, and I want to maybe dig a little bit more.
I want to know that tool too. By the way.
Yeah, so maybe unpack that one a bit more for us, because that one sounds like it is using more of what I think the advances more recently in AI, with natural language processing and being able to do things with that. And maybe even you're connecting it back to an individual person and account, or maybe you're treating that separately. But I'd love to know more about the deeper into
Yeah,
that
I mean,
area.
and
It sounds different than just
so
social media. What do they call it? Like a
it's
yeah.
correct.
I like that.
Sentiment analysis. Yeah, it's more than
Yeah,
that.
And
It's
sentiment
deeper.
Yeah,
analysis. Like,
I
what does
mean,
that mean? It's sort of soft. Like, complaint. That's what I want to know.
correct.
Right.
So
Greg does a lot
when
of
you have
complaining, by the way.
complaint
Just so you
analysis,
know. He has written a few letters
Have I been named in your
uh,
system? No.
I mean, so as an example, with one of the customers that we did this solution for, they were using they used a large language model to predict if they had incoming communications that was a complaint or not. So first, that's kind of
Okay.
binary. I'm classifying whether someone's telling me something that they like, or telling me something that they don't like. And then it does use some sentiment analysis to really understand whether the complaint is negative, neutral, positive, and to try to see the sentiment trends over time by product category. So now we're not just looking at a complaint, we're looking at whether you're positive or negative, we're looking at whether what's coming in terms of the thousands or millions of data points that are coming in. Then you're going to use a large language model that's going to be embedded, that's really going to cluster complaints together, because you're going to have types of complaints. And so now you're going to be doing some type of clustering to see what those complaints are and how similar they are to each other, so that you can understand patterns and trends over time. And is something, quite frankly, could be seasonal. So you're looking at all of the reasons why something could be happening, and then you're creating um, summaries of those complaints. So you're taking the technology, and of course, the generative AI part is going to be able to summarize versions of those complaints over millions and millions of consumers. And then you're going to have some visualizations that show you kind of how these things are coming together. And then you're going to do some modeling on those complaints because you're going to want to predict how they're affecting your overall business in a category, on a product, on a particular SKU. You can do all of that with Complaint Analyzer. And this is not something that takes like, months to do. I'm talking this complaint and analyzing is happening in real time. And then you, as the person that would be managing the category and managing this particular product line or brand, you should be then taking different actions to mitigate that. Now, you're going to have most of those actions are going to be programmed in because you're going to be saying, if this happened, then do that. So you're taking in all of these signals. These signals are giving you the things that you are saying, what is the action that you want to take, and some are obviously going to be more critical than others. If it's someone that's your most valued customer versus a customer that is a customer that maybe shows up once or twice a year versus someone that buys from you perhaps 12 times a year and they buy premium products from you. Those are different people, those are different types of people. And one would argue the one that has the highest lifetime value is the one that you want to make sure that you're addressing their needs quickest and fastest and doing something that's much more specific than treating everyone with the same type of complaint in the same way.
Or disconnected.
And
I mean, Jacqueline, what I love that you're doing
or
is you're connecting
disconnected.
lifetime value or your prediction of lifetime value with the person in the complaint. And so you have this
Exactly.
meta level, which we've been doing for decades, right? In support area of saying, well, what are the top 10 complaints? What are the top 10 issues? Okay, that's fine, but your ability to connect that to individual people and to respond individually
That's
and then
kinda
look
cool.
collectively across the product and really take advantage of the metadata, that's really using what AI, this generation of AI is good at. So I think that's really exciting. Great.
And
Sorry,
this
you
is
had a question.
well, I was just gonna. I'm just
The
curious
other
how it
thing
works.
that-
Like, I'd like to understand. Can I see a product spec? Do you have a PDF on this? But no.
He'll read it, really.
Not only do we have a PDF on it, but I'll send you to the our customer experience. We have actually a demo on it online, so I will send you the link.
Ooh, I
to
like that. Let's be sure and provide
Yes.
that to the listeners. So Jacqueline, but just to sort of be clear, so this is all signal. I mean, this is obviously what's Teradata ingesting into its systems then and able to do this now. So obviously, Complaint Analyzer is a solution product that you're offering, okay, on top of your
Yes.
normal data. So is this like customer service listening on calls? Is this customer service email? Is this social media? Like, what are the things that are input? Like, I'm kind of
It's all of the above.
Okay.
So it's all of the
Wow,
above.
that's kind of cool.
It's all of what you just named, which is what makes it so cool,
Yeah,
right?
very.
It is the ability to take from many, many channels that you listen to, aggregate that information, and then understand the patterns within that channel that you're hearing from so that you can take action. And let me just go back to what Rex asked the question about, because I think it's really important. I always tell people, for me, when I listen to anyone that, when I say complaining, and everyone's like, feedback is a gift. And we, in our brain, we're like, really, it's not a gift. I really didn't like that you gave me feedback, but thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being the first person in the
you.
corporate world to
Yeah.
say, yeah, a gift? Yeah, I'm not so sure. I prefer not to have the gift. Can I give it back? Is there returns on this gift?
But the one thing that I do think about feedback being a gift and even a complaint being a gift, I always feel like it's an opportunity to come up with something new. So if there's something that is not that someone is disagreeable on, it's more of me saying, Well, this is why this particular, like, let's pretend I was giving someone a report every month and they said, this report really isn't answering my questions. That, in some ways, is a complaint, right? And you could hear that same complaint from 10 of your colleagues about the report that they felt didn't meet their needs. For me, I always look at it as an opportunity to come up with something new that someone would like and feel that that did meet their needs. So for me, when I think about customer complaint analyzer, I think one of the biggest opportunities is for companies to be more innovative. The other thing you can do with complaint analyzer is you can look at what people are complaining about other companies. So if you
You mean
have a
like
product
like
that
your
you want to
competitors? Really?
yes,
Oh,
yes,
How
wow.
does that work
yes,
for that data?
because
That's
Where
on
are
the
you
social
sourcing the
media
data?
feeds then, obviously, right?
Yeah,
that's the social
Okay,
media
okay.
that's part of
feeds.
listening,
If you
lots of
go
different
back,
channels. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
listening from lots of different channels. You can hear what people are
Yeah.
saying that they
Yeah,
don't
yeah, yeah,
like,
yeah.
and you may also be hearing that you may be in the same boat.
Mm-hmm.
The two companies could be the same, right? You're kind of hearing
Yep.
similar things, but you're also going to hear things that people also
Mm-hmm.
like.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if let's say your two airlines are competing with each other, and we all know that one of the things that they compete heavily on is their loyalty program, and you'll know that over time, those loyalty programs, in some ways, have morphed to align to each other in the sense that they're just not that different, right? If you bought a first class ticket on United, you get to go to the club. If you bought a first class ticket on Delta, you get to go to the club. In the past, that actually wasn't true. If you weren't a member of, quote, the red carpet club and you bought a first class ticket, you may not be it, that access to that lounge was not
Mm-hmm.
available to you. And so let's imagine, right, that you're the airline now listening to all this information, and you have a bunch of people out there going, I think it's so great that, I got my ticket, and included with that was my ability to go to the club, and saved me whatever, 30-40 bucks because I didn't have to buy food in the airport, and I got to, Wi-Fi, and I was able to work for 2 hours because my flight was delayed. Those are things that people actually say online. Those are things that people actually talk about. So imagine you're listening to that and you don't have some type of similar offer for your people that have bought a similar class of ticket. I think that would be something that you probably would think about changing so that you could be more competitive, because those are things that differentiate companies from one another because they're offering different experiences. And so when you're out there and you're listening and you're picking up some of those things, that's when you can really begin to ingest just billions of data points, and then be able to see the patterns that help you think about what are the
Right.
types of products or services that
Hey,
I need to
yeah.
change
Hey, hey, Jack.
in what
Hey,
I'm
Jacqueline.
offering.
What else is it? Listen. Obviously the complaint analyzer kind of got Rex's in my attention for whatever reason. It sort of, I think, because it does sound like a. I've heard a lot of people doing work in AI. It seems like a lot of people said digesting transcripts of AI. Of customer service records using AI. So I've heard a lot of that kind of stuff. Then probably, I've not heard anybody actually have an actual product like you just did, which is what I think just caught my attention. And I think, what other products, or here's the thing, Crea. I mean, you can sell us on Teradata a little bit here. That's okay. Like, what's the most interesting AI-driven product you think Teradata is either has developed or is in the process of developing? Or top three.
I
I don't mean to
think
make. I mean, not. This is not a test. I'm just.
it feels
Yeah,
like a
yeah.
test.
Sorry, I
It feels
positioned
like a
that.
test.
I worded that funny. Yeah. Like, what are like the most interesting applications that you've kind of heard? Like, we could
I
be done with
think the
this.
most interesting applications that I I think about are ones that are related to specific use cases that our customers would have. Some of them aren't that sexy. I think that I started my career in telecommunications. Churn, churn,
Mm-hmm.
churn. If you are a company that has, you know, a book of business around customers that you need to stay with you, and whether that is a phone company, a cable company, or anyone with a service that now is portable, even electrical services are now portable in a way that they were never portable before. Churn becomes critical, and your ability to understand the patterns and behavior around churn is going to make or break you. And you can see that with what's happening with the subscription services. I remember when Hulu was by itself and it was kind of on its own, and then it couldn't be on its own anymore, right? All of these guys are consolidating because they have a lot of overlapping content or just not enough content. And all of those things are hugely important for any company that's in that space and has a need to grow, especially when you think about what happened during COVID. There were a number of companies, whether that was DoorDash, Instacart, there's a bunch of those services. They all feed on getting more customers into their models. They all feed on working with other companies to be conduits of their supply chain. Churn is a hugely, hugely important metric for those types of companies. And that is something that we just do extraordinarily, extraordinarily well. Lots of use cases around that, understanding uh, churn prediction and all of those things. The other one that I would leave you with is when you think about every time you call into a call center or every time that you're online, even the best companies, even the best companies that should have the best digital journeys have a broken digital journey. And those broken digital journeys cause a lot of friction. So when you enter into the specific, you're on, whether it's Hilton or Marriott or Hyatt, and next thing you know, you think that you're still there, but now you've been put into another intranet, but you're kind of still not on the main one, and you're now having to either re-enter information or you called into the call center and you got bounced from one person to another and you had to tell them the same information 3 times. It happens when you call a hotel, it happens when you call the doctor, it happens when you almost do anything. Those are broken digital journeys. Those are also problems that we work with companies to solve. That is friction. Anyone who is solving the problem of me not having to enter my information 3 times or tell 3 different people the same thing that I just told them is the company that gets my business. I don't want to have to do that. They should be able to validate me in the same way that you get validated with single sign on. And once you're validated, you should be in the zone, and then you should be able to move easily and seamlessly from one point to the next. That saves money. It
But how does
definitely
AI? How does
enhances
AI
the
do that though? How, I mean, listen, that you would hope that would
because
be
it
searched more
knows
simply to
because
execute that
Or
against
is it
rules.
not
it's
AI and
not.
it's just, you talk about single sign-on and just having more of a common
Well, it is
orchestration
AI
system?
because it is AI because you need to know what, because when you think
It's okay,
about
by the way, if it isn't
the
AI. I was just trying to, see which
no,
parts
no,
work.
no, 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 no. No. It's definitely AI because one of the things that I don't want to call it the precursor to AI, but the foundation of AI is machine
Hmm.
learning, right? So the question is, what is the pattern that you need to either extend, or what is the pattern that you need to break? And you need to be able to model those patterns so that you know what is the action that should be taken. People talk about next best action as if it's just something that's kind of, oh, we've been doing that all along. If you've been doing it all along and it was actually the next best action, everyone's company would be growing like gangbusters. That's not true. so the AI part of it, or the machine learning part of it, really comes from the data science, and it comes from your ability to really figure out what are the patterns that you need to learn from. And once you've identified what those patterns are, then you're going to be able to understand what those trends are and where the digital journey is
Yeah,
breaking.
and the
I
reason why I
think,
was pushing on whether it's orchestration or AI is, and just respectfully, this is a maybe an important nuance, but is that when you get to the next best action, deciding what to do as the next best action, I can definitely see how, whether using machine learning or some deep learning technique or some AI or having natural language processing write write the offer or do those things, I can definitely see that part of it. Totally agree with you. The orchestration part around identity is, to me, an area that I would encourage people to be very cautious about and careful about, because in your example you call I've certainly had this problem where you call an airline, you try to fix something, and then they transfer you over to someone, and you have to re-give them the information again, and you're like, wow, that you would have thought that the orchestration could have been call was forwarded, and there's the metadata attached in that forwarding in some JSON package that's moving across and connecting. And I could imagine that a system like Teradata that has a system of record of customers could make that easier. Adobe, others, there's people that play in this space to try to help make that process seamless. That to me is a hard handoff that's deterministic. That to me seems safe. But I worry about if we're trying to infer that if this person over here is the same person as they moved across here, that introduces chances for bias or misconnections or privacy or data leaks that could be a little bit dangerous.
I, 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 I think that's true, which is why, um, if you know, I don't think anything is like a a 0 or 100. I think most things kind of fall in between. And let me explain what I mean when I say that. I agree with exactly what you just said. There are things in a system of processes that need to be validated. What I would like is for someone to say, can you type in XYZ on your phone, or do something that validates you quickly, as compared to you having to repeat the exact same information that you just
Oh yeah,
gave someone.
100%. That's all.
Because
Yeah, yeah.
and so I'm more thinking about the ability to be able to do that in a way that um, is not necessarily a bot, but something that helps you to do that in a more expedient way.
Yeah.
Most times, the way that happens today is literally you recommunicating every single thing that you just said to the first person that you spoke to, and then doing that to the second person, and doing the same thing to the third person. And I think that does create a lot of friction. I think that even if you're doing it online, that there should be a way that you can validate yourself in a way that allows you to do that. That is where I think the machine learning and AI would come in. But the security measures and the authentication to anything that happens is critical, which is why, first and foremost, um, I will start with, do you have trusted data, right? Do you have the data that you can trust so that you can take the action? If the data is not trusted, then you can't take the action. But you need to get to the point of, how do I get that data more quickly? How do I get it in a way that is streamlined? And I do believe that you can use um, AI to do that in a way that would be more progressive than I think the techniques that we're
Yeah,
using
yeah, I can
today.
definitely see if you have a deterministic handoff that you're summarizing the information before with AI so that the next agent that's helping you already knows that. I want to dig a little bit deeper into a question, because we've had a lot of white males on this, and I'm so glad to have a person of color, who's thinking about this part but because one of the issues that I've struggled a lot with when we get into next best action in some of the systems is some of the risk of bias. One of the things that can happen is that AI will push some of the references and it's to the center of the distribution. And if you are representing diversity by definition in AI, you sometimes can be your needs or your subtle differences in needs and next best actions and so forth may be lost. How should we be thinking about that as an industry? What type of things should we be doing to make sure that what we're building is truly inclusive and that we're doing enough testing to make sure that the patterns that we're seeing and so forth are not pushing us to a place of bias?
Well, first of all, thank you for the question. I think it's a really important question and something that I think about and probably something that I worry about, to be blunt. I worry about it as a person of color because bias is already out there and it exists, and we seem to be having conversations on bias and inclusion that are going the opposite way of kind of what we've been talking about for 40, 50 years, of the importance of having a more inclusive and equitable society. So thank you for the question. I think the way that you mitigate that is you have people that are part of the team, that you have data scientists that are persons of color, that you have technologists that are persons of color. To my knowledge, I don't know. I think I'm one of one or a very few number of people that are in the C-suite in a technology company. And I do think that my position in that allows me to bring things up that may not have otherwise been thought of, because you're not going to think like a person of color if you are not a person of color, because you haven't had my lived experiences. You haven't had my lived experiences on where there have been bias or prejudice that I have experienced. And I think that it's really important for people to be at the table to at least communicate when they see something that looks like bias or could potentially be bias, so that they can bring that to the conversation so that it can be included in the discourse. I think that's critically important. When you think about even drugs and pharmaceuticals are not tested on enough, quote, persons of color. So some of the things that you get on outcomes for drugs or outcomes for diseases leave out groups of color because they don't test on groups of color. And that in of itself is a bias. And so I think that part of what I'm hoping with AI, and my hope is that we actually use it to reduce the bias that is already in the systems that we have, by really being intentional and looking for when we see patterns of bias. It should be very easy to see if you're testing a drug and you've only, 12% of the population is African American and 20% is Hispanic. It should be very easy to see if you're testing a drug and the drug that you've tested on 94% of the people have been white, that it may not have the same ability to solve the problem that it's trying to solve on people that have a different ethnicity. And we need to understand that, and we need to be mindful of it. So for me, I really want us as a society to understand that having data scientists who are people of color across the spectrum is going to be really important to mitigate
Completely see that for sure. And to ask a challenging question, then to bridge it to the complaint part, because I don't know the answer, so I'm looking for guidance here. If you're looking at, just like the medical research, should we be looking at complaints, and should we be thinking about people's ethnicity, color, age, etc., to see if we have patterns where there's more complaints by a certain community than another, and maybe we're not doing a good job? Or is that taboo and dangerous?
I wouldn't say that. I mean, I think you have to be careful because someone could always accuse you of having a different kind of bias when that all you're trying to do is get to the information and get to the data. But let's say that you had a store in a certain neighborhood. Just pretend that you had a store on Fifth Avenue in Manhattan, and if you were aware that you had a number of complaints coming from a certain group of people, it doesn't matter what the group is. It could be the group could be diverse by gender. They could be diverse by sexual orientation. They could be diverse by ethnicity. And if they all were experiencing the same thing, that this is how I felt I was treated, I think that you would want to know that pattern, because I think that you would be having a certain bias against a certain type of people in that particular store on Fifth Avenue. I think that's something as a retailer that you would want to know.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And
I
that
think what the part that
and that you would want to take. Yeah, I mean, I think you have to be careful, but if the person says clearly, I went into the store and I felt I was treated this way because I am an African American woman, and I did not see other patrons treated that way, I think if that happened over and over again, I think you would have to conclude that there is something going on that is consistent with the people that have written that in their commentary or called on the phone or put it on, Facebook or TikToked it or Instagrammed it. I think that you would want to know that. And it's twofold. One, you have the opportunity to take action on it and make sure that the people that are coming to your establishment don't feel that way, and you have an opportunity to mitigate, you know, um, the fact that you need to maybe do some more training, because maybe the person is, quote, not a bad person, but maybe they don't know that this is happening in their store. If I'm the manager, I want to know that, and then I want to do some training with the people that are in the store to make sure that people don't feel that way. I think that's important, and I think those patterns are important. But that's because someone has self-identified, right? They've told you who they are. That's not you taking a picture and saying these are the people that are complaining. Those are two
That's a
different
good
things.
point.
Hey, Jacqueline, I see we're out of time here, so I think we're at the point of sort of wrapping up. But listen, I can't thank you enough for doing this. I mean, listen, like I said, Teradata has to be one of the leaders in this. You guys have been around before AI existed, maybe, potentially, or at least certainly
Yeah.
machine learning. And I know that there's been a big transformation of the company to really move to the cloud, away from just sort of
Yes.
installed sort of database. So it's very interesting. It's been a real story of transformation. So thank you.
Yes, thank you. And
Thank
that's
you.
it for this episode of Decoding AI for Marketing. I'm Rex Briggs.
And I'm Greg Stewart.
Be sure to catch all our episodes, plus subscribe, follow, rate, and review in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. You can get transcripts and more information on our website, decodingaiformarketing.com, and learn more about MMA membership options. Go to MMAglobal.com. Thanks for listening.